Good afternoon. Want to, as always, give a lot of glory to God because we're here not only to announce a significant investment into some very important work that happens here in our community as well as across the state of New York. I'm thrilled to be standing with my colleagues. We serve together in the state assembly. And as a representative serving the city of good neighbors, I think it's imperative that New York, in Western New York, that we look after all of our communities, and particularly the Holocaust survivors. Most of us have heard the horrific stories, and we know what people experienced. We also know that there are some people who survived that experience, and we're pleased and delighted to have Dr. Messenger here with us today, who is actually a survivor. We're also very pleased to have with us today Michael Rawl, who is the CEO of the Jewish Community Center of Greater Buffalo. We're glad that they're standing with us, and we're really super proud to be able to announce the $350,000 that the State Assembly put in our budget to deal with the needs and support of Holocaust survivors. One might think, why would you, way after the fact, still need to be supporting people who experience this trauma? Well, trauma could be long-lasting. We don't know what sort of impacts it will have on people's lives, but what we do know is that we have a constitutional responsibility as electeds to take care of the people who are in need. We feel like with this allocation, we are doing that for the greater Western New York area. So following me, we will hear from my colleague, Karen McMahon, who is from our Amherst district, and then Jonathan Rivera, who is from the Western New York Buffalo district, the other half of Buffalo. And then, of course, we'll hear from the CEO of this great facility. Karen.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen McMahon. I'm a New York State Assembly member from the town of Amherst. I also represent Pendleton. I'm so pleased and proud to stand here today with my colleagues to announce this really important funding for the JCC. As we all know, Holocaust survivors were witness to one of the most atrocious eras in history. And as the Majority Leader said, it's our responsibility to care for people who have experienced this trauma. As we know, years pass and there are fewer and fewer survivors to tell the stories. And so it's really important to care for these folks and to make sure that they can tell their story so that this never happens again. So thank you all for being here. Congratulations on the funding, and I'm really happy and pleased to work with you on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you again, and thank you especially to our Majority Leader who brings us together for moments like this and rallies not just this region, but the whole state and all of the representatives from the New York State Assembly majority around important, essential things. Just in the last few weeks, we've announced a lot of amazing things. We've celebrated a lot of great moments, but it's also essential to remember perhaps not happier times, but times regardless that still need to be remembered. And we know that in the face of trauma, healing can look very differently, and we know that healing can take a lifetime. And we feel honored and privileged, one, to just be here, but two, to play a small part in ensuring that the healing process will continue for folks that have gone through this absolute severe trauma. On top of it all, we know that, as Assemblymember McMahon said, this is about, holding on to history. This is about remembering moments. And that's why it's another amazing opportunity to come here where we have generations of people that come into this building, old and young. Just a few steps away from us are preschoolers, kindergartners, and young ones. And here we are bringing remembrance to folks that have gone through this horrific tragedy many years ago. So it's reflective of this institution. It's reflective of Western New York, that we're coming together, supporting these big initiatives. And I want to thank everybody that's been able to put this together, and especially to the folks here at the Jewish Community Center. So thank you very much.
Foremost, I would like to thank Majority Leader and our Assembly members for their ongoing support of our community's Holocaust survivors and for continuing to make the fight against anti-Semitism a priority. This generous funding will help provide support for Holocaust survivors from Western New York to live with the services and socialization opportunities necessary for a fulfilling life. In order to provide the broadest spectrum of in-depth engagement possible, the Jewish Community Center will be working alongside our partners at the Holocaust Resource Center and Jewish Family Services. As the grandson of a Holocaust survivor, I have witnessed the pain and trauma that many of these survivors carry with them. Within this generation lies an essential connection to a world of Jewish culture and ancestry that may never exist again. Additionally, these individuals play an important role as living reminders of the frightening reality of growing worldwide anti-Semitism, and that it is our duty to never forget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think it's kind of an honor and a treat to actually have Dr. Messenger here with us, and even though we didn't anticipate him speaking, I would love it if he would make some comments. Doctor? By the way, he has a book with his picture on it.
Yeah, this is the book. It's the book about the ship, the St. Louis. I was born in Berlin, Germany, and I lived there for the first 7 years of my life. And we finally were able to get passage to Cuba and a visa to Cuba. We got on the ship. It took us 2 weeks to get to Cuba, only to find out when we got to Cuba, to Havana, that the Cuban government had I can't think of the word. Yeah, they changed their minds, and they decided that they weren't going to let us in. And so we were forced to sail back to Europe. The passengers were split among 4 countries: Belgium, Holland, France, and England. We ended up in Belgium, where we lived for a year, and then the Germans invaded a year later. We fled to France. We went as far as we could, which was the Spanish border. And we lived there for 2 years. We were able finally to get a visa to the United States and to find a Portuguese ship to take us to the United States. And we ended up here in June of 1942. My father's 2 sisters, who had also been in Germany and who had actually made it to Cuba and eventually made it to the United States, had moved to Buffalo. So we moved to Buffalo, and that's why I'm here. Anyway, it's the story is a gripping one, an interesting one, and it's one that people ought to read about and remember. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Your story is a profound one that many people have experienced. In fact, even right now today in the world, some people are experiencing similar things, trying to get to a safe place and having a hard time doing that. So with that, we will end this portion. We are proud to, on behalf of Speaker Silver, stand and acknowledge that there is a $250,000 allocation that is going out across the state of New York to help support the work of Holocaust victims, Holocaust survivors. It is a pleasure to have done that, and if there's any questions on topic, we're happy to take them.
Could you talk a little bit about exactly what services this money will go to?
That would be Michael.
Yeah, what the dollars turn into.
Yes, there are a variety of services, including socialization services, as well as mental health support. The different agencies that we're partnering with provide a different function, which is why we chose to do so. Jewish Family Services really focuses on their mental health needs and their actual living support, while the JCC helps focus on creating programmatic opportunities for them to engage. And the Holocaust Resource Center helps connect us to the survivors of the Holocaust and to provide a greater context in which we can do that.
We have an idea, obviously, what the Jewish Community Center is doing. What can the community at large do in the face of the ebb and the flow and the rise and spike in anti-Semitism? How can the community help in this mission of making sure never again this happens? This kind of thing?
Yes, I believe that the Jewish Community Center is not only a town square for the Jewish community, but it's also a very important place to act as an ambassador to the outside world. And we believe that it is through knowledge, through not forgetting, through discussing this matter, as we're doing today, that we can raise awareness of growing anti-Semitism and teach people that Jewish culture is something that they can recognize and, frankly, interface with.
Are you concerned we're still talking about this many, many years later, that this is still a huge, huge issue, huge problem?
Absolutely. As I said, there's growing anti-Semitism in the world. There are many concerns about this, and we're grateful that we're continuing to see support from our Assembly members from the state of New York by way of this funding, security funding, and similar sorts of opportunities.
Okay, so we're all good. Thank you all. Thank you all. Have a great day.